I bet you can't guess what this building behind me actually is. If you think walking in from this entrance it looks like business as usual, then you have been deceived. It has all the usual hallmarks of a typical, incredible but typical Chinese temple. It's blue, it has the dragons, it has all the colours, has the cool roof. Despite all of that, it is actually a Catholic church. And along the side as you walk towards it, you have a wonderful mural of all these biblical scenes like Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark, all sorts. And on this end we have the birth and the crucifixion of Christ, and something in the background over there that is interesting for a reason we will explore later. This really is quite an unusual combination of things. Even inside it has loads of Taoist and Buddhist decorations, and oh, our cat mates are still here. He's trying to find his pal. Look at that for a hiding spot. And the cafe right next to it even does espressos. What more do you need? Now, in case some of you lot are not sharing my enthusiasm for this situation, let's just consider we are a bazillion miles from any other Christian place. The population of China is almost not Christian whatsoever. 2% of them are Christians, but most of them are Protestants. So this being a Catholic church has even less reason to exist. There is little to no information about it other than it was built in 1927. I don't really know what it's doing, but I'm glad we've stumbled across it. It is brilliant. Stunning. Let's go. So here we are, still deep in the southwestern Chinese province of Yunnan, an area I have come to adore during my time here, but have got to move on eventually. So today is the last time I'm going to be in the sandwich, the meat in the tradition and nature sandwich that is this part of the world. Today we're having a mooch around Dali. This is certainly the most authentic of all of the old towns we visited. As you can see, everybody within the ancient town is still going about their daily lives. They live, work and play within the ancient city, slightly less embellished for tourism, I would say, and all these street scenes are so cool. We are everywhere. They love us. As a result of being a bit less polished, it just feels a bit more like lived in, like it's being used for what it was originally made for, just day-to-day stuff. Like this, for example, obviously a very cool bit of kit, but it is just being used as a normal road. It's ace to see it in action. As you know, I love the other old towns we visited, but here I feel like I could sit and people watch here for a long time. Found some kind of fruit market, and given that I am now a veggie pretty much, I'm going to try and use some of my linguistic skills to acquire a banana. 你好，我要一根香蕉，多少钱？你要几个？OK。你要几个香蕉？一根。Yeah, 再见。It worked. We've got a banana. Good scran. We've already seen one of the coolest Catholic churches in the world today. How about the coolest KFC? Look at this. Hey, we've got another one. There are a handful of specific sites within Dali, but I'd say the main value of the place is just the vibes. It's just a cool place to be. Now then, I wonder what the deal is with all of these Union flag scooters, because they are everywhere. I was about to say we're not going to see an American one, but there we go. I thought that would be a little bit controversial, but maybe not. Here we have just a regular residential street, and it actually all does look like this. So as we approach the main site of Dali, the most marvellous part of the whole thing, let's first talk about the people of the area, because we are now among the Bai people. We've spoken about the ethnic groups of different parts of the Yunnan province. We had the Naxi people in Lijiang and we had the Tibetans in Shangri-La. Now we are in the Bai Autonomous Prefecture, which is different. Once again, we're in the same province but had 3 different ethnic groups, which means different traditions, different styles of architecture, everything. It makes this place really cool. And Yunnan is one of 22 different provinces in China. As you can imagine, it becomes an awfully varied place. The word Bai, the name of this group, means white in Chinese, and they are so named because of their affinity for white things. This area has master craftsmen in things like silver, silk, marble. They even make special white paint here, so they just like white stuff, and they were given that name by the Chinese authorities only as late as 1956. Until then, they were known as the Minjia people. Get your optic spams on this. These are the mystical 3 pagodas. If you'll recall, these were in the background of the Crucifixion of Christ mural that we saw earlier. Very interesting claim. This mist, as much as it makes it all look even more magical, is divine. It's a toasty one today. Here they are then, in all their glory, accompanied by the misty mountains in the background. That big one in the middle was built in the second half of the 9th century, so it's more than 1,100 years old, and it is 16 stories high. If you thought the 5-story one in Lijiang was cool, have a look at that, one of the tallest ever built in Chinese history. As you can hopefully tell from this kind of angle, they weren't built in a straight line. They're actually the 3 points of an equilateral triangle, and the reason they were built in the first place is dead interesting. Local legends tell us that the area that is now Dali, where we are now, was once a swamp inhabited by dragons. And they didn't want humans living here, so they deliberately caused natural disasters to keep humans away. But then, when they built these bad boys, the dragons respected and admired them so much, they left them alone. And Dali grew into what we see today. Doesn't it just look like you nip through this temple, over the mountains, you're in Mordor? I'm going to miss all this when we move on. I'm optimistic for the rest of China. It's going to be brilliant in loads of different ways, but being around mountains, old stuff, religious stuff, what a vibe. Wonderful, wonderful part of the world. Now that I've got my ice cream, let's take a seat somewhere and go over some historical context. And while we go through it all, you can have some random overlays of Dali, my favourite place in China so far. So if you go back as far as 1000 AD, Dali was one of the 13 largest cities in the world, and it stayed that way until 1250-ish, when the Mongols came in and wrecked it. Until then, though, it was an incredibly prosperous place as a trade route linking the Yunnan, Sichuan and Tibetan provinces of the area, so really, really important trade route. But then the Mongols came in doing Mongol things and ruined the party, and it wasn't until the 1400s that Dali was rebuilt by the Ming dynasty. Then geography prevailed once more, and Dali again became an important trade route, this time with countries like India and Burma, which had a massive impact on the area because that introduced loads of Muslim influence, and slowly but surely this area became predominantly Muslim. So after a few hundred years of that, the Hui Muslims of the area joined other ethnic minorities in the Yunnan province to start a rebellion in the 1860s, which ended terribly, and the population was pretty much sent down to zero by the Manchurians, and since then it has been a Buddhist area. And that pretty much brings us to where we are today. You'll notice in all of that, there's no mention of the Christians at any point, especially not Catholics, which is why I was so intrigued by that church earlier. Look at this dog's jacket. And for today's nugget of wisdom that nobody asked for, I've learned a lot of things in my time in China already. There's loads of stuff that I've got to grips with, but there is one lesson in particular that is the most valuable and a little bit bittersweet. So it turns out I am disabled by Chinese standards. I've got a clapped ankle in my right leg and a clapped knee in my left, which means when it comes to toilets, squat toilets are not an option. Simply do not have the mobility. But if you seek out a disabled toilet, they are built like the Western ones. And then you're good to go. Something I never really thought about, but came across it. Worth sharing it if anyone is watching this as inspo for a future trip. Something that is very unusual about Dali, unique I suppose is the right word, is that the ancient city has walls surrounding it. It's one of the only ancient towns in China to have them, but as a result you have 4 gates, north, south, east and west. This one here is the west one, facing Kangshan Mountain. And if we follow this cat to the south gate, I think we can get up on the wall somewhere. Okay, so this isn't the south gate, but it does give us a good view over a little bit of the old town. And it has a very interesting sign. No killer littering. So littering's alright, as long as it's not fatal, I suppose. And from up here, you can see one of the many silver craftsmen at work. Alright, time for some scran. I need to overcome this phobia of Chinese food. Slowly, like I'm still not going to go for this collection of bugs, but see what we've got. 你好，你这是什么？
洋芋粑粑，
鸭肉粑粑。
就土豆丝饼嘛，
Okay, 我要一个。
一个个。
So we've ended up with Yayu Baba, which I think is something dad, maybe dad's potato. Hoping it means ash brown. Oh, it is. Oh, it is an ash brown. 10 yen, 1 quid. And in the middle, it's like soft ash brown. Good scran. Very good scran. In Chinese, we would say, hen hao chu. Very good to eat. See, I'm learning. And with more things that are hen hao chu, we will rebuild this relationship between me and Chinese food. We'll get there. So here we are at the south gate. Maybe it's all starting to look the same, I don't know, but for me, I'd never get bored of stuff like that. Anyway, that means we're out of the old town. We are done with Dali for today. It has been brilliant. 4 stops so far. Firmly number 1. Loved it. See you in the next one, chaps. See you in a bit.